Hi children, I am going to continue yesterday's lesson, social movements in our times. Now let us have a quick recap of what we learnt in the first part. We learnt about the background of social movements, that is how these social movements and why these social movements were started by people, and some of the social movements like American Civil Rights Movement and human rights movements in USSR, and also anti-nuclear and anti-war movements, and conflict between USA and Vietnam, and Cold War between USA and USSR, and how they signed treaties, and Greenpeace movement in Europe in 1971, Bhopal gas tragedy 1984, and we learnt about movements against dams on the Narmada River. And we saw how people protested against the construction of these dams. Now, let us proceed further. Initially, the largest dam on this Narmada River was Sardar Sarovar project. And initially, this Sardar Sarovar project was expected to be built with money borrowed from World Bank. Initially, Sardar Sarovar Dam was proposed to be built on Narmada River by borrowing money from the World Bank. And after seeing to these protests and movements against the construction of dams, and also an international campaign was held against the construction of these dams. That means at international level, a campaign was held to stop the construction of these dams on Narmada River, because more than 3,000 dams and projects were to be constructed on Narmada and its tributaries. So at international level also a campaign was held. After seeing to all these protests, the World Bank decided to withdraw its funding, and it withdrew its funding also. Of course, somehow the bank and the government completed the project, and now it is functioning, it is generating power also. But though this Narmada Bachao Andolan, this movement, failed in its attempt to stop, it was started to stop the construction of Sardar Sarovar project. Though it failed to stop the construction of this Sardar Sarovar Dam, it succeeded in forcing everyone to think. It could not stop the construction of Sardar Sarovar Dam because the government somehow it procured money and it continued the project, and now it is functioning also. The Narmada Bachao Andolan forced everyone to think twice about the nature of development we are going to achieve, and whether it was in the interest of the poor people or rich and powerful people that the dams are constructed. So, whenever in future the government proposed construction of any dam on any river, it forced the government to think twice about the nature of the development they are going to achieve by construction of that dam, whether it was for the poor people or for the rich and powerful. And at the same time, this movement also forced the governments to consider giving enough compensation to the people to resettle and start a new life again. Because whenever people are dislocated, the government is paying compensation for namesake, which is not enough for their resettlement also. So, they are losing their land, their properties, everything, and they are going somewhere. But this compensation given by the government is not enough for them to start a new life there. So, the movement forced the governments also to consider giving enough compensation to the people to resettle and start a new life again. Now the next one is CSE. CSE, it was founded by Anil Agarwal in 1980. The main aim of this CSE was to study the environmental and developmental issues in India. That was the main aim of establishing this CSE. And this CSE started publishing famous series, Citizens Report of State of India's Environment. These are the famous series started by CSE. In 1982, this series was started. It was all regarding environmental and developmental issues in India. If the government takes up any developmental issues, how it will affect the environment. These series were started by CSE in 1982. And these reports, they became authoritative references on various environmental issues also. So, CSE was founded by Anil Agarwal in 1980 to study the environmental and developmental issues in India, and to bring awareness also among the people regarding these problems. And for that purpose, it started publishing its famous series, Citizens Report of State of India's Environment. That is the full form of CSE. Citizens Report of State of India's Environment. In 1982 started publishing this series. And the next very important movement is Silent Valley Movement. Silent Valley Movement, it was led in 1973 to 1985 it was led. Now let us see what is this movement. The government proposed to build a dam across two rivers in the Silent Valley. Silent Valley is in Kerala. Do you know why it is called a Silent Valley? Because the forests in this valley, they don't have crickets. These crickets make much sound. They don't make much sound. So, therefore, the forest was silent. The forests in Silent Valley, they don't have crickets which make much sound. So, because of that, this valley is silent. That is why it is called a Silent Valley. It is in Kerala. And in this Silent Valley, on two rivers, a dam was proposed to be constructed by the government. And this Silent Valley is the home for lion-tailed macaque. You can see in the picture, lion-tailed macaque. And if the project is constructed in this Silent Valley on these two rivers, that means the trees will be cut down and the forest will be clear, and then species like long-tailed macaque, they will go into extinction completely. So there was a serious protest against the construction of this dam. And Silent Valley is in Western Ghats in Kerala, and many people, they felt that if the project is constructed here, it will lead to the extinction of some species like this lion-tailed macaques. And also the forest will be cut down, trees will be cut down. So a major movement developed against the construction of dams in Silent Valley. And people across the state, they were mobilized by an organization called KSSP. The full form of KSSP is Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad. And this organization mobilized people against the construction of this dam in the Silent Valley. And this was an organization working for popularization of science and learning among common people. And these people, KSSP, they went to the court and appealed against felling down the trees in the project area in the Silent Valley, and Kerala High Court ordered to stop the felling of the trees. And also in 1985, this Silent Valley was declared as a national park in 1985, and the government finally decided not to construct the project on these rivers in the Silent Valley. So it was the decision taken by the government not to construct any project on these two rivers in the valley to protect some of the species which are going into extinction. That is the story of Silent Valley. It took place in 1973 to 85. What is the name of the species? Lion-tailed macaque. And this Silent Valley was declared as a national park by the government in 1985. What is the organization that mobilized the people against the construction of these dams? It is KSSP. What is the full form of KSSP? Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad. Now let us move to another one. Social justice and human rights. Since many years in the past, women are the main participants in any social movements, because they were the people who were discriminated, who were not given equal rights, equal justice along with men, equal treatment. So for all this, demanding all these, they were the first ones to take active part in all the social movements. Now we are going to learn about two of such movements which were only led by women mainly. And those two movements are anti-Arak movement in Andhra Pradesh and a movement which was led by women in Manipur against Special Powers Act of the Armed Forces. Now let us see what are these two. The first one is anti-Arak movement which was led in Andhra Pradesh. And the name of the movement is Adavallu Ekamaite. If women are united, what they can do. That is shown in this movement, by this movement. Now, let us see what is this Adavallu Ekamaite. This movement was started, initially it was started in Dobagunta village of Nellore district. In this village, all the women also, they used to work in the fields and they also used to earn money. along with their husbands. Along with the men, women also used to work and they used to earn money. And the money thus earned by them, it was being taken away by the men by force. Whatever money they were earning and saving, that was being spent by men for their arak, toddy, or liquor, you can say. So that hard-earned money was being spent by the men on toddy and arak and liquor, and they could not tolerate it. And they had to suffer from lack of food. They used to spend all the money on liquor, and the people, the family members and the children also, they used to suffer from lack of food. So, and after drinking, they used to come home, they used to abuse the women, they used to beat up the children. And such incident occurred in Dobagunta village. Once, a lady called Seetamma, she was beaten to death by her husband when he was in a drunken condition. And she died. She was beaten to death. And after seeing to that, the women in Dobagunta village, they could not keep quiet. Next day, hundreds of these women, they marched out of the village, and when a cart load of toddy was coming into the village, toddy means arak, liquor. It was coming into the village for auctioning. They stopped the cart there itself, and they asked the owner of the cart to throw away all the liquor. And they said, all of them will contribute 1 rupee to compensate the loss. He has to throw away all the liquor bottles, and then they will contribute each one 1 rupee, because they were hundreds in number. So to compensate his loss, they are going to contribute 1 rupee each, and they forced him to throw all his bottles. He was really horrified. He was terrified at this. And from that day, no cart entered into the village with toddy or arak. And then, after 1 or 2 days, when a jeep was carrying arak into the village for auction, a jeep with full load of arak, it was coming into the village. Again, these women stopped the jeep, and they said they are going to lodge a complaint with the magistrate. If the jeep enters into the village, they are going to lodge a complaint with the magistrate. Immediately, he went back. He closed his shop. And now, these women, they gained confidence that if they come together, if all the women are united together, they can achieve anything. And this this victory was possible only through education. And after that, no one participated in arak auction. And finally, in 1992, when the other women of other villages also heard of this incident in Dobagunta village, they too got inspired, and they also started similar movements against arak and against liquor. And they forced the annual auction of arak contract by the collector of Nellore district to be cancelled completely. Once for all, it was cancelled by the collector of Nellore district when he was forced by the women. So, in other villages also, the women came together to fight against this liquor. And finally, officially, this liquor was banned in October 1993 in Andhra Pradesh, and total prohibition was imposed in 1995. Of course, now also again the government is encouraging these liquor shops, and they are being opened, and people are, as usual, they are continuing their vices. That is a different thing, but officially it was banned. Now let us see some of the articles. This is a list of some important human rights. Now let us see what are the articles in these human rights. First, Article 3, everyone has the right to life and liberty. Everyone has the right to life and liberty. That is Article 3. You have to just remember the provision of each article. Article 5, no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. No one shall be subjected to torture ante chitravada cheyadam, harassment, or to cruel punishment. Article 7, all are equal before law. What is it called as? In our constitution, it is rule of law, and this rule of law exists in India. Article 7, all are equal before law. Article 9, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest. Arbitrary arrest means without any arrest warrant. If a person is arrested and kept in the police station, that is called arbitrary arrest. Before arresting any person, an arrest warrant should be shown to him what is the reason for his arrest. And if without that arrest warrant he is arrested, it is called arbitrary arrest. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest or detention. In Article 10, everyone is entitled to full equality, to a fair and public hearing. In Article 12, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy. Each individual has his own privacy, and no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy. And Article 13, everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. Out of this, the most important ones are Article 3, Article 5, Article 7 and 9. Please remember. Once again, you repeat them. Now, the next one is AFSPA Act, that is Armed Forces Special Powers Act. The full form of AFSPA is Armed Forces Special Powers Act. It was passed in 1958 by the government. Now, let us see what is this AFSPA. Now, let us see how women of Manipur in the northeast India fought against the implementation of AFSPA, which this AFSPA, that is Armed Forces Special Powers Act, allowed the armed forces to suppress people for no reason, only if they have a doubt that they are involved in anti-national activities. Immediately they were arrested by the people and they were detained in the police station and they were harassed. Now, Manipur is mainly composed of two geographical terrains, the valley and the hills. Some part of Manipur is valley and some part of Manipur is covered with hills. And before we got independence, this valley part was under princely state, ruled by a prince, and the hilly area was independent, that is autonomous. In this hilly area, mainly tribal population was living. Are you understanding? Manipur was mainly composed of two types of geographical areas. One part of Manipur was valley and the other part was full of hills. And before we got independence, this valley part was under princely states ruled by a prince, and the hilly area was independent, that was autonomous. And in this hilly area, mainly tribal population was living. And at the time of integration of princely states, when this work of integration of princely states was given to Sardar Patel, as already we discussed, the Kingdom of Manipur signed a merger agreement with India in 1949. I told you, when they joined the Indian Union, they have to sign a document. What is the name of that document? Instrument of Accession. So Manipur signed this merger agreement, Instrument of Accession, in 1949. That means it wanted to join the Indian Union. In 1949, it signed the agreement and it was made part of Indian Union. After signing the document, it was made part of Indian Union. And many tribals in hilly areas, they argued that they are independent, so they don't want to join Indian Union. I told you just now, Manipur was in two parts. Hilly area was autonomous. So they argued that they are independent, so they don't want to join Indian Union. And to bring the situation under control, the government of India sent the army and implemented Armed Forces Special Powers Act in Manipur. Armed Forces Special Powers Act. According to this act, the armed forces get the right to arrest or shoot people simply if they have a doubt that they are involved in anti-national activities. Simply if they have a doubt, they can shoot at them and they can detain them, they can arrest them. And while detaining in the police station, they used to harass women like anything, in many ways. And you know what are those different ways. And people thus arrested were harassed, tortured, and sometimes even killed. And if women are arrested, they used to do all type of nonsense with them. And after that, the women themselves committed suicides, and sometimes they were killed by the armed forces. Now the next one is Meera Paibi movement. What is this Meera Paibi movement? In Meeti language, it means torch bearers. The meaning of Meera Paibi is torch bearers. Originally, this movement, Meera Paibi movement, was started to prevent or stop public disorder due to alcohol consumption. In the late 1970s, it was started to stop public disorder due to alcohol consumption, because the men, they used to consume alcohol and late at night when the women were coming home after completing their work in the fields, they were being harassed by these drunken men. So, against this public disorder due to alcohol consumption, in the late 1970s, this Meera Paibi movement was started by women in Manipur. But it soon became a movement for human rights when armed forces were sent to Manipur. Just now we discussed. In Manipur, when the situation was going out of hands, the government sent armed forces. And these armed forces were given power to arrest anyone and detain in the police station or even shoot at them if the armed forces have a doubt that these people are, anyone is involved in anti-national activities. So, at that time, Manipur was declared as a disturbed area. And extraordinary powers were given to the armed forces through AFSPA. And this led to frequent human rights violation. And the Meera Paibi protested through demonstrations. The Meera Paibi movement protested through demonstrations. Every day, a group of women taking turns, they started vigiling the streets. Vigiling means kapla kaidam anamata. Vigiling the streets with no other weapons, but they had only a bamboo stick in their hands and a rag kerosene torch. And that is why the name Meera Paibi is used. Meera Paibi means torch bearers. Torch means it is not torchlight like our torchlight. Rag kerosene torches, you can see in the picture. In their hands, as you can see in the photo, in the next slide, I'll show you. No, it is not given. Okay. They had a torch in their hands. It is rag kerosene torch in their hands. And thus, women themselves took up the responsibility for the safety of their community. And Meera Paibi also demanded that AFSPA be revoked. It should be taken back by the government from these northeastern states, from Manipur. And gradually this movement became stronger against the act. As a protest against this AFSPA act, women boycotted elections, they started hunger strikes. And you might have heard of Iram Sharmila, who has been on hunger strike for more than 10 years. And she was under house arrest. Till recently she was under house arrest, and only last year she gave up her hunger strike and decided to contest in elections. And she is famously known as the Iron Lady of Manipur. Now, some common features of social movements. Generally, these social movements are led by common people. And when any changes are forced upon them, these social movements are led by the common people. Any changes are forced upon them is, suppose the existing system is changed, and the changes which are made by the government, they are not acceptable to the common people, but they are forced to follow the changes. That is called as any changes are forced upon them. Generally, these social movements are led by common people when any changes are forced upon them. And sometimes people demand for a change in the existing system. Demanding a change in the existing system also, they can lead these social movements. If they demand any changes in the existing system, they can lead the social movements. And if any changes are forced upon them, then also they can lead these social movements. And these movements are not led by political parties, but political parties can support these movements. These political parties can be part of the social movement. They can take part in these social movements, but they cannot lead do not lead the movements. They take part, they support the movements, because if there is political support, if there is support from political parties, the movement will be more stronger. So they can support the movements, but they don't lead these movements. Only common people lead these movements, and they are sometimes supported by the political parties. In a social movement, people are united under a single cause. Suppose a movement is going on, a civil rights movement or a Greenpeace movement, just now we discussed, any movement. In that movement, all those who are participating will have a common aim. With the same aim, they fight in the movement. So, these movements, people are united under a single cause. For the same cause, all the people who participate in the movements, they fight. And when people feel that their demands were not fulfilled, they lead social movements to get their demands fulfilled. And these are the common causes for these social movements, and these are some of the common features of the social movements. Now, as usual, I am giving you homework. Read full lesson and underline all the key points. Learn all the 1 mark and 2 mark question answers and complete the blanks first and compare your answers with the key. Here is the key for blanks.